point, you gotta turn off the lights.
We used to have people in council meetings do lasers, and I would just watch them. Like a cat.
You said we're good.
We're ready?
The good old
All right, it blanked.
All right.
Good evening and welcome to the City Council Special Meeting of Tuesday, March 5th, 2024. One item on the agenda. That item is discussion regarding the Norman Nature Park design. Mr. Evans and Mr. Fun, or Dr. Fun.
Thank you, Mayor. Today we're going to give you a presentation of the Norman Nature Park. If everybody remembers, we inherited this as the Mattoon property in 2000. I think it was year ending 2022. It might have been 23. I don't know, Anthony, sorry. But we got $1.5 million set aside for a nature park out there. It's also in coordination with our stormwater division to be a kind of an educational experience as we're out there. So we have focused in on the nature park. We did hire PDG out of Tulsa. They to design this for us. They also did our Griffin Park property, but today I'm going to hand it over to Jeff Evans from PDG, and he'll give you a rundown of what we've materialized and designed out here.
Like Jason said, I'm Jeff Evans from PDG, or Planning Design Group. We did take part in a master planning process for this park a few years back with the Stormwater Department. This has since transferred over to the Parks Department, and still working with Stormwater Department and Planning Department to get this moving forward. We have completed the conceptual design on this, as you're seeing on the screen now. I will run through some of the numbers and everything and what those mean and indicate on this design. We'll start with kind of how you enter the site. You'll come in on Carter Avenue and enter the parking lot on the northwest corner. That number 5 is your parking lot area. The anticipation right now is the west side of the parking lot, to follow the nature theme, will be designed with permeable paving, whether that be concrete unit pavers or some type of other system that will be the least amount of maintenance for the city in those areas. That will have under drainage underneath it that will drain down into the item number 4, which is a rain garden area to filter the water before it goes back into the natural drainage system. So that number 4 is just there on the southeast side of the parking lot. As you travel into the site off of the parking lot on the north end, you see a number 7 there. Would be able to have some educational signage and entry signage for the park. And then we move into the playground area, which this would have some nature-themed play areas, play equipment. We'd utilize mulch, we'd utilize rubber surface, synthetic turf, and everything as the surfacing. And then the play equipment, you'll see some example images here in a minute when we flip over to the example slides, but that would have that in that area. There is a slope across the site, and so we're playing off of that slope. So the blue area that cuts through the middle, you can see the white lines through it. There is about a 3-foot elevation change from the upper playground to the lower playground. This will be all ADA accessible, and that's why the sweeping walks around the west side here get you down to grade in an ADA accessible manner. It'll have stairs as well. You'll have a plaza area there on the west, and then on number 2 on the east side, that would also have a covered plaza area that could be used for outdoor classrooms, picnics, whatever you wanted to utilize that space for. And then as we venture throughout the site, you get into some nature pathways. So these might not be fully ADA accessible. They will be a decomposed granite or a granular type trail. It will be constructed with a binder, so it will be maintenance friendly. We do use an organic binder in that. And then when you get to number 3 over here on the right side, we'll have a boardwalk area. What that's not showing you is from that boardwalk down to the water is a pretty steep slope. And so the reason it's pulled back a little bit is we want to make sure that we don't interfere too much with the requirements of the Corps of Engineers and FEMA and the city stormwater department on the requirements for what we have to do with that stream. During a non-rain event, this is pretty much a dry creek bed. During a rain event, it does produce a lot of water through this creek. So with that, we're trying to increase storm capacity with 9 in the middle. We'll be bumping out that area. It'll allow more capacity in there. We're hoping to dig it down that we can maintain some water in there, create some habitat for different animals, different plants, and filter that water too. So that's the goal there. And then on the south side, having a plaza area that overlooks that and on these north and south sides, providing educational signage to teach people about the habitat of the animals, maybe the fish that might come through this area, the animals that might live in the trees around it, and then also the plant material that would be incorporated into the site. Also on that south side, we would have ADA connections to Alameda Street on the west and east sides. And then number 6 at the bottom middle, that's existing right now, is a billboard. From what we understand, the lease agreement is up on that at the end of this year. So the goal would be to remove that billboard, and then that would become the park signage location to utilize that spot front and center to the park on a highly traveled road. I'm gonna have you go ahead. So with this, you're seeing tree coverage. Go ahead and go back one time. You see the tree coverage here. This is an existing survey, so we have had the site surveyed. We're doing the grading and drainage off of that survey. The tree canopies are a little bit bigger, probably based on realistic canopies, but this is the location of all the trees on site. We have tried to keep every tree possible. There had to be some removed when the site was bought and cleared by the Parks Department, and then there was some additional ones to make sure we do all the proper surveys and data information that we had to do for the Corps of Engineers and FEMA and for our structural design of some of these elements. There were a few more trees and underlying things that had to be cleared out. But we have tried to keep everything that we possibly can, except on that northwest side, which is not heavily treed already, where the parking lot and the playground area would go. So going to the next slide, these are some example images of what we're proposing in the site. Some of them are realistic, so we've started working with playground vendors on the playground equipment, so you can kind of see some of the images here in the middle that are big, and up on the top center, those are actually images that we've been trying to compile for the equipment that might go in there. Nature-based play. We'll use some rocks and some different slopes, and then some of the signage materials you'll see up on the top right, with some Core 10, trying to keep it more in the natural materials and natural tones. And then the pathways, like I was talking about, going through the trees, maybe having a timber border or a stone border with the decomposed granite like this, so the pathways would look like that. The ultimate goal is to not regrade those areas, but to just basically cut the pathway through and get this material in. Some of the different items with the boardwalk here on the bottom left, just an example of how we want to create that type of stuff. You can go here to the next one. Same types of images here. You got educational signage up on the top left. If you wanted some pathway signage and everything on the top right. Again, some of the renderings of the different types of play equipment, trying to incorporating berms and logs. And then we also are going to try to use a pre-manufactured shade structure like the one you see in the center here on the bottom that would have a green roof on top of that. So again, playing off of the nature themes of the project. That's pretty much the overview of the project and what will be incorporated in it. Jason, is there anything else you wanted me to touch on or?
No, I think
Highlight.
you hit everything pretty good. And we can go to the.
And so with that, we'll kind of go to the budget of this. We've put together a preliminary budget. Oh,
One
go ahead,
second.
sir.
There are a couple of questions. I've got one. You said that you were going to use mulch in the play area. I realize not all of those toys or games or whatever
And-
are ADA, but
I may have misspoke there. Mulch is a typical standard product, but we will probably use synthetic turf or rubber surface in most areas.
okay, just want the kids to be able to play.
But just for your knowledge, they do make a wood engineered fiber mulch that is ADA accessible in playground areas. It's a
We-
stretch, but by code, it is technically ADA accessible.
So I've had, in the past, I had a Parks Board member who was 103 years old and wheelchair bound, and he was an engineer. And he asked us to take him to a playground with engineered wood fiber. And it looks like bark, and I don't know how they engineer it. And he got out of his wheelchair and walked on it, and he said, if I fall, I want to fall on this and not the rubber mat on top of concrete. And we turned all of our parks into engineered wood fiber. It gives you all the fall protection and everything. It just looks more natural than a rubber mat
And it-
out there under the play equipment.
It can be a lot of maintenance for city staff, because you do have to make sure that it meets the fall requirements and the heights and everything. It has become somewhat a an item that most park departments across the state do not want to use because of the maintenance level that goes with it. It does have a cheaper upfront cost, but in the longevity of everything, we are actually going in Oklahoma City and ripping out parks or surfacing material and putting in rubber and turf in those areas. We've done it in Bixby, we've done it in Muskogee. So most cities are now going away from that. To
I will
get,
say our minimum standard in neighborhood parks is synthetic. And then if we're doing a community park, we prefer a poured rubber surface.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the red, is that a pavilion?
that will be a shade structure that overlooks the increased area of the creek there.
Much like the other slide that had one of those green roofs. Yes, that one on the bottom.
So that green roof would be, if you go back, the green roof type structure would be number 2 up at the top. The red one would be a fabric shade structure with metal post or we can get a wood printed post. It's not printed, it's painted to look like a wood product. We can do different things like that. And then we would use more of an earth tone type shade structure, but we wanted red to show where that is because everything is an earth tone in this. So you gotta do creative things to make sure people see what you're doing.
And then the other part about, okay, so you said some places wouldn't be ADA accessible. Would there be wayfinding signage for, ADA accessible trails, like that are actually connected?
We can do that and provide, this is an ADA accessible route, because some of the areas when you get off there, so really it'd just be kind of 2 signs. It would be kind of that northeast side would be your area that we can't get full ADA accessible routes without regrading the whole site and tearing down all the trees. So our ultimate goal was to keep that, but this path down on the south side would be fully ADA and everything up on the northwest side would be fully ADA.
It has all to do with your slope.
Yeah, I'd love some signage so people coming know exactly where they can go.
Awesome.
Or just jumping ahead.
No.
That's a good suggestion.
And then with the long-term thoughts around 9, which is a detention pond, but potentially maybe all year round pond, what kinds of wildlife do you picture living in that? And
Anything that lives in the city of Norman can live in this park. So the goal is right now that's just a creek bed and it's about a third of the size, if not smaller than what you're seeing right there in the area that's shown. And then our grading of that center area is going to bump that out and deepen it. We'll grade down into it to increase storm capacity. So it will help the city's flood issues if they have any. And it will also provide habitat space.
so, like turtles could be in there and use the waterways?
Yes,
and
ma'am.
not so much the roads?
We hope they do.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Councilmember Holman?
The south trail
Yes, sir.
not connecting to the north side, is that due to a bridge structure being cost prohibitive, or we've had that issue on some other projects where
There were early on discussions to put a bridge across this or a low water crossing.
I thought I recalled there being one.
And a lot of that has been removed due to stormwater requirements, due to FEMA or Corps of Engineer requirements. Because if we get into that, we will probably delay this project about 2 years. 12 months minimum just for dealing with the Corps of Engineers to get the proper permits and everything to put a low water crossing or a bridge across some of this area. We had originally talked about putting a bridge across the northeast to be able to connect to the church area. But most of that area of the creek falls on the church's property. So that was kind of discussed with all the parties involved, and that was something that was decided for right now. It could be a future item that could be discussed with the church to add that back across.
So potential in the future to add a bridge up there, or maybe even connect the two,
Yes.
if there was a desire and enough funding and stuff like that.
But right now, we have full access. We're adding sidewalks along Carter to connect to the sidewalk on Alameda so that we can connect all the way around the site. It just won't make a full loop per se.
Will that be a standard 5-foot sidewalk or a 10-foot multimodal path?
That will be a standard 5 or 6 foot sidewalk there along the street.
Okay. Maybe we could think about what it would take to do the multimodal path. down to Alameda, and then maybe the sidewalk in Alameda could get widened too, so. Couple ideas there.
Jason, the canopy that exists, how manageable is the underside in order to keep it clear enough so it's easily patrollable? And we can just keep the community safe because we're not gonna cover it in lights. Are we able to maintain the canopy at
Yeah,
6 feet or higher?
that should be relatively easy now that it's all cut back right now. It's just maintaining and then, if we keep up our current maintenance plans, that would be zero problems at all. It'd take years for that to grow back unmanaged.
And there's already a fence along this whole north side, right?
Yes, sir.
Between that and residential properties? And is there a fence on the east side between the?
There is
church?
not a fence on the east side.
No, I mean, we currently have the whole thing,
Yes.
surrounded by chain link. So are we planning on incorporating, especially on the north side there, like their fencing? Are we gonna bring our own fencing in to kind of make it look?
We're not anticipating putting a new fence up there on the north side.
Okay, I'm just curious. So there's a lot of traffic along Bishop Creek there.
Yes.
Safety issues like Mr. Powell just brought up, so.
But not keeping the fence there.
So, well, that fence, the chain link will stay up during the whole construction process until we're finished and it'll be removed.
Okay.
Any other questions?
One other thing I was gonna point out that I did leave out, most of the areas up in the northeast side and along the south side, if those are not disturbed a whole lot during construction, a lot of them have been scraped and there's not a whole lot growing there now. We will kind of clean those up, and it is anticipated to seed those with native grasses and native flowers, to incorporate that also, to bring in pollinators and everything else to the area. There will be some sodded areas up around the playground area. So budget-wise, if you want to go through all these, we can. This is kind of an itemized deal based on the design and the items that are included in this. Somebody brought up lighting. There is some lighting that we're anticipating for the parking lot and around the playground area and plaza areas. That will be all solar lighting. We have some standards that we've used in some other parks that will work with the Parks Department and Public Works or whoever needs to be involved to get that incorporated into the project. Right now, they said a budget of 1.5 was an all-in budget. Take out design fees, surveying fees, geotech fees, environmental stuff that we had to do, some hydrology information that we have to do for the Corps of Engineers and through City Stormwater Department. We have about 1.2 million, 1.25 million left as a construction budget. Right now, we're showing we're at about 1.2, and we're carrying the 7.5% contingency is a design contingency. There is also a construction contingency that we've held out for city also for anything that might come up for change orders, unforeseen conditions, or anything like that. So we've accounted for all those items going up. As we move forward in the project with construction drawings, we will start incorporating that 83,000 back into all this stuff so that we're still in that 1-2 range is where we hope to stay. But as you know, construction dollars change daily right now, and so that's where we want to cover ourselves a little bit. And these are our estimates based on past projects, similar projects, talking with vendors, talking with contractors, and that's where we come up with these pricing.
Yes, sir.
And just to confirm, this is money that we currently have in the budget, and this is not a new funding request of this council. Okay,
Already appropriated.
appreciate that.
Jeff can go over schedule a little bit. So, how long till you get construction documents and then, estimated time for bid approval, then construction time?
So basically, we're setting, if we get approval to move forward today, as long as everything goes well with the Corps of Engineer and the city stormwater permitting process, which we have already submitted to the Corps of Engineers. We've kept that process going, but haven't moved to CDs. So I was reading through my notes here. Everything's been submitted. They asked for additional information for the Corps of Engineers. We've submitted that to them also. And so we're just waiting for them to either one, write a letter that says that there is not a requirement for a permit, or that there's some minimal stuff that has to be done, because our hydrology specialist has written a letter to them saying that there is zero change in the flood elevation in this area. So that is where we're hoping that there will get a requirement of no permit from the Corps of Engineers. We also have to do a stormwater permit through the city of Norman, which is in the process also of compiling all the information there. Some of the holdup right there is, once we get this approval, we'll be able to refine our grading plans and get a somewhat of a preliminary construction set that will go to the stormwater department, because they need a little bit of information that we don't have complete right now.
So lowering the bottom of that pond, or that, it's not really a pond, it's a little water, lowering that doesn't make any changes to the watershed?
Does, and that's part of what Reza, who's the engineer that they have, is working on, is as soon as you change the size of that creek, you lower that, obviously that can affect adjacent properties. Right now, at least from my conversations that I've had with Reza, it looks like we're gonna have no impact, like he was saying, on adjacent properties, which is good. But because there is a change to the channel and things like that, that's why we're waiting on the Corps of Engineers. So before we go to the floodplain permit committee, because that is going to be one of the things that they're gonna wanna know is the Corps gonna require an individual permit? If they do, back to his point, that could delay things a year to 2 years and be quite a bit more costly. So that was some of those design changes that they had made was based on those recommendations.
Thank you, sir.
City's always holding us up.
It's kind of, we get the chicken before the egg or whatever there, because we gotta get the Corps of Engineer approval, but we also need the city's approval, but we need the Corps' approval before the city's approval. That way they have all their i's and dotted and t's crossed.
Any more questions from council?
I feel comfortable moving forward.
Good work, do you? Okay. Anybody disagree with that, moving forward?
Obviously, council would award the contract to whoever will do the install, so you'll see this come back before you again before.
Yeah, we still have to put together bid packages and get construction drawings and do all that good stuff, and y'all approve all that before we grant those bids.
I'll just say, since our margin is so tight, I would say the sooner the better we can make that process happen.
Yeah, and Jason, to finish the answer to the question about schedule we got on the hydrology, our ultimate goal right now is, with approval today, we will take about 45 days to get a 65% set ready, roughly in that range. We'll submit that to the city for approval through the Parks Department and everybody else for them to review and comment on. And then we'll have about another 45 days to get to 100% review set. And then we'll be ready to go out to bid after that. So we're about 90 days out, but we hope to speed that up a little bit. We hope that nothing happens on the core side or anything there, but 90 days or less and we'll be ready to bid.
What's complete construction once we?
This one will probably put about a 6-month to an 8-month construction window on this. So if we look at the schedule and we're 3 months out from right now, that puts us April, May, June. We bid in middle of June. That takes about 60 days to bid and award. So we're July, August, so you start construction in August. And then
Talking
you go,
like spring.
yeah, it's probably spring of next year is what we're looking at.
So it'll be, actually, even if it starts this year, it'll be next year when we see it, and then a couple of years after everything settles.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and that times up well with getting that billboard removed. That's February of '25.
Who owns that? Tony
We do
Tyler?
now.
Yeah, we do it, but I think
There's
it's
a lease
through
obligation.
Landmark.
Oh, Landmark.
Lamar, thank you.
Landmark. All right.
You're saying it could open when? If all things goes well?
Probably early summer, late spring of '25.
Earth Day.
There you
Make
go.
that
There's the
goal.
target.
I like it.
Earth Day.
Yeah,
No pressure.
So
Yeah.
let it be written, so let it be done.
That's right.
I wish that worked. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time, and
Thanks for having me. Sorry I was a little bit late.
we
Sorry, I gotta turn
understand.
back
traffic.
around.
Yeah.
I sent Jason a picture. I was like stuck in standstill traffic. I was supposed to be here 15 minutes early and then the map instantly changed to 10 minutes late and I was like, what just happened?
Been there, yeah. It happens, so. All right. Anything else from council?
Thank you.
All right, we're done.
All right.